Hi everyone, and welcome to CTL's Education Professional Development Series. I'm Stephanie Shea, the Marketing Manager here at CTL, and I'm joined by Walter Germer, our Technical Specialist. If you're not familiar with CTL, we're headquartered in Portland, Oregon. We've been providing IT solutions to education and government for over 26 years. We're proud to be a Google for Education Premier Partner. And some of our most popular products include rugged CTL, to-go PC laptops, convertibles, 2-in-1s, and tablets designed specifically for K-12 education. However, over the past 3 years, we've been working with Google to introduce a line of Chromebooks that have been recommended by PC Magazine as the best choice for Chromebooks in education. So as part of our commitment to education, CTL offers monthly professional development webinars to our education customers. These webinars include a variety of topics that are relevant to K-12 ed tech, but they have a big focus on Google Apps for Education, or I should say G Suite for education, and Chromebooks in the classroom. We're very excited about today's webinar, which is Google Admin Best Practices and Insights. Our presenter is going to be Tom Woods of Amplified IT, which is an education-focused Google for Education consultancy. But before we get going, I'm just going to review our control panels today so everyone knows how to participate. We've taken a screenshot of the attendee interface, and you should see something that looks similar to this on your own computer or desktop. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you want to join over the phone, all you have to do is select the telephone button in the audio pane, and the dial-in information will be displayed. You'll also have the opportunity to answer, or not to answer, to have your questions answered, to submit text questions to today's presenter. Just type your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. And you can do this at any time during the presentation. We're just going to collect them, and Walter will address them with Tom at the Q&A session at the end. And if we run out of time, don't worry, we'll contact you and make sure that your questions get answered. And before we get going, we're going to ask you a couple questions. So we want to learn more about our attendees. The first one is, how long have you been a Google administrator? Can everyone see this poll? Okay, good. Just making sure. So we'll give people a few moments to answer this. Looks like so far everybody has some experience, but we'll let them keep answering. Okay. I think the votes are in, so I'll share these results. This is good to know. Majority have been a Google admin for 2 or more years, but then we do have some people 1 to 2, 16% 6 months to a year, and then 8% 0 to 6 months. And if anyone on here is not a Google admin, I was told this will still be really helpful. It's going to give you an idea of what you can do with the Management Console. So thanks for answering that, and let's go quickly to our second poll. Let's find out who is, and we've got the different classifications. If you're an administrator or you're actually a super admin, curious about people who aren't but maybe plan to get certified. Give people a few more seconds here. All right, let's look at our results. Um, so, wow, we've got a lot of super admins, and then about half and half of people, maybe they're not certified, and some plan to get certified. So this is really good information for Tom to know about our audience. Thank you, everyone, for participating in that. Let's go back to our slides. I'd now like to introduce Tom Woods. He is the lead Google for Education consultant and Google Apps Certified Administrator at Amplified IT, and education-focused Google for Education Consultancy. Today, Tom's going to cover key best practice settings and approaches to G Suite domain management for educators. So, welcome, Tom.
Thanks, Stephanie. I had to unmute my mic there.
Let me get the screen control over to you.
Yep, sure thing. And thanks everybody for attending the webinar today. I've got a slide deck here that I'm going to bring up on my screen, and we're also going to be able to leave you with that slide deck, and you can take that away. So I think everybody should be seeing my screen now, if I'm correct. And we've got a URL here at the bottom for today's slide deck. It's bit.ly/bestinsights for best practices and audit insights. So if you would like to bring that up and follow along or refer to that at a later date, that will always be available for you, and that's a resource you can take away with you from today. And there's some various links on some of the slides that you can use as well. Again, my name is Tom Woods. I'm a lead Google for Education consultant here at Amplified IT, and I've got a 15-year background in K-12 technology and IT management. I've been in the IT world for around 22 years, working with various companies and various technologies over that time. So I'm a Google certified administrator myself, as well as a certified deployment specialist. And a few other things I've garnered over my years of working in IT. And Amplified IT, we're a technical consultancy company, and one of the things we do is we have a very direct focus only on Google for Education. That's all we do, and we only work with K-12 schools and school districts. So we've strived over the last 6 or 7 years to be there to help schools and districts use their Google for Education environments to their utmost ability, and to follow good best practices, settings, and safety for students to make sure those environments can be as successful as possible. We've done this for a lot of years. We've worked with hundreds of districts across North America and throughout the world, but predominantly in North America. We work very closely with the EDU team at Google around the changes and things that are happening in the Google for Education space. And we are big proponents of Chromebook adoption and using these tools to promote student success in the classroom and at the point of instruction as well. So one of the things, as Stephanie mentioned, there's been some changes, and Google's rebranded and renamed a few things. The system itself, so to speak, has changed from Google Apps for Education to G Suite for Education and Google for Education over top of that. So when we're talking the admin console and some of the pieces we use every day with the various apps and services, that's now G Suite for Education. And then there's a larger umbrella, so to speak, of Google for Education that includes Chromebooks and Chrome management, Google Classroom, as well as G Suite and the admin console and the apps that are within that. You can get more information following that link if you want to see the release on that name change. So one of the things we always look at with schools and districts that we work with is how well is their admin console and their G Suite environment configured, and that's the big question. And the reason why we really want to ask that question is due to the fact that ultimately when you receive this G Suite environment from Google, it's not configured for education. It comes with a lot of default settings that are a little bit more centered around Google for Work, and you didn't really receive an out-of-the-box, ready-to-go, educationally appropriate set of configurations and settings with the environment. So we want to work with schools to make sure that those holes are plugged and things are set appropriately for K-12 students and for the staff that are going to be using this system ultimately. The main areas we focus on in our Google for Education audit, and most of the work we do tend to revolve around these core pieces. So we have the general and high-level operations of the environment and the Google for Education management, so the admin console, the services and the various pieces within that. The service and configuration of the settings, so we've got now 10 core services available to us that are covered under the privacy and support agreement with Google. We've got 52, 53 additional services, quite a long list of additional services that are not covered under the privacy and support agreement. So working through all those, what are their settings? Are they set appropriately? Are they set properly for the various age groups of students that we work with every day? And even just as important, are they set appropriately for our staff and teachers? Looking at security and compliance is a big focus for us. Security around Gmail, around Google Drive, knowing and seeing what's happening within those platforms, making sure that it's within the policies and compliance that you set out as a district or a school to try to attain. And then the adoption and usage, so working with the tools to see what the take up, what the usage and adoption is it high, is it low, are we getting the buy-in and the adoption we thought we were, and ultimately are we getting return on investment on the Chromebooks that we're purchasing in Chrome devices, and as well as this leading to an improvement in student success as well.
Tom?
Yes?
Some are not seeing your slideshows, so
Okay, let me make sure. Some maybe are getting my screen share and some aren't, perhaps.
Yes, let me check.
Let me just, I think in the system here, it's got my monitor 1, monitor 2 kind of reversed separately from how my system sees it. Is that working? Maybe now?
It's working. Great, Tom.
Okay, yeah, thanks for letting me know. We haven't missed too much yet other than just the changing in the name to G Suite for Education and Google for Education. We were talking about these main areas of best practice that I read through, and we're on the slide now, so thank you. The numbers are reversed compared to how Windows shows them to me. One of the next questions we take a look at when we're doing our Google for Education audit and working with a lot of customers is the OU structure. Ultimately, the OU structure is very important because it dictates how we manage everything in the admin console. We're OU bound in the admin console for all of our services on or off, all of our settings. So the OU structure becomes extremely important to make sure it's set up to do this efficiently. So is your OU structure future ready? Meaning, are we able to grow easily if we're going to be adding schools or sites or different programs to our school or district? Is it ready for what may come from Google with the release of new services and apps and various features in Google Classroom or otherwise? A good, functional, and granular OU structure can really serve us well and set us up to succeed with being able to apply settings at a lot of unique and granular levels. And again, we want to do that because, one, it's going to create a very efficient way for us to administer all the services and settings. We'll have greater control over them. We can drill down to school, to grade levels, to various types of users, and be able to decide what services will be available, what will be on and off for them, and then even at a deeper level within something like Gmail or Drive, what will the settings be? You know, will there be certain sharing? Will there be certain things on and off? What are the restrictions? What are the options available for those settings can be applied down to that OU level? This is a sample of our typical recommended OU structure, and this varies from engagement to engagement. We do a lot of work with the schools and districts we work with to find out what their goals and initiatives are, and then that determines exactly what the end result of this OU structure should look like. But in a general sense, there's a lot of best practices built into this example here. And one of the first places it starts with this example is this split right off of the root of our structure to differentiate a staff and a student OU. Having that differentiation right from the start is one of the key pieces to setting us up well to be able to administer all these apps and services. So we've got 10 core apps, we've got 53 additional services. That's a ton of things to decide whether they should be on or off. We always approach those with the lens and the eye of, should this be on for staff? Should this be on or off for students? We can come here to these locations if Google Plus is not going to be on for students. We can turn it off at the student OU. That's going to cascade down and inherit down to all these child OUs below it. With one place, one click, we can turn off a service for all students, whether that's 100 students or whether that's 100,000 students. Efficiently with one setting, we can affect all our students in one way. Turning things on for staff, again, services on or off at a very high policy level type decision. Staff will get Google Plus, they will get Hangouts. Maybe they do not get Google Voice. We can make those changes and those decisions here at the staff OU and affect all of our staff in the district. Breaking staff down a little bit further, we have different OUs for different roles, whether that's operationally or something to do with how our organization operates. You know, we suggest typically the district office staff, the IT department having their own OU, perhaps school administrators and principals, and then our teachers or faculty. Anyone that you expect to have the need to apply different settings to is going to then require them to have an OU in order to apply those settings specifically to them. There's a lot of things we turn on or off for our IT staff to make sure they have certain abilities. We may want to give people at the district office different abilities, et cetera, et cetera. We don't typically suggest breaking the teacher OU down to a further level of maybe listing out all of our schools. You could have 10 schools, you could have 100 schools. We typically treat teacher settings the same for all teachers. If we're doing something for one, it's probably beneficial or necessary for all. And we don't want to get into having extra OUs and a lot of extra layers that we don't really require and having a messy structure. So if we can treat all teachers with the same settings and the same approach, then we really suggest that we do that. Where things differ and then get a little bit deeper is, of course, under the student structure. So this is where we have the next layer being a divisional breakdown. We have elementary, middle, and high. If you have middle schools, then we suggest that's there. And that gives us an opportunity, even at that level, to make some pretty good policy level decisions here. If we're looking at walled garden approaches, for instance, which we'll talk about a little bit later, we can do those here. If my elementary's K to 5 students, kindergarten to 5th grade, I can make a setting here on the elementary OU, and it's going to affect all of my elementary students. That could be 3 schools, that could be 30 schools. No external Gmail inside or outside to the outside world, restricted delivery, walled garden approach. I can set that there and we're done. Or if I set it at elementary and middle, I've now covered my K to 8 students. If I set something like that at the student OU, then it would be K to 12 and we're affecting all students, so on and so forth. This could be pushing out apps and extensions. Maybe there's certain Chrome apps and extensions I only want my high school students to receive. We could do this at the high school OU, and only those students would receive that. Taking that a little bit further, we then break that down to the various schools, and again, an opportunity there to deal with schools on a school-by-school basis. Maybe principals have certain requests for apps or extensions or settings or restrictions. We could do that at the school level, and this is typically also the area where we're going to see our Chrome devices and Chromebooks possibly get housed. We already have all the schools listed here. There's not too many reasons to recreate that as a separate structure for Chrome devices and repeat all those schools all over again. Let's just use what we have here and purpose it for housing the Chrome devices as well. Shared Chromebook carts, maybe we have a layer underneath the school for each cart, cart A, cart B, cart C, and we can have those there. Then we suggest going down to a grade level, and this may be something that you don't have yet. It may not be something that you have perhaps in your Active Directory structure, but we really recommend it on the Google side. That's what gives you that extra layer of granularity, being able to go to a grade OU and be very specific with the 4th grade or 5th grade students, giving them a certain app or extension, giving them a service, maybe for a short period of time for a special unit that a teacher is working on. If you get that request from that teacher, we can say yes, we can turn on Hangouts for your class for a period of time to do pen pal videos because we don't have to give it to the whole school. We could focus it and target it just to that 5th grade class. So that has a lot of power there in providing things for the school and giving them a very targeted approach. If we were doing automatic provisioning like Google Cloud Directory Sync or what was formerly called GADS, syncing with our Active Directory, or we could be syncing from our student information system, we'd stop at that point. Those automated processes and systems are going to look after moving the students through each grade when our SIS data changes in the summer. And they won't get mixed together, and it will be looked after by those automated tools. If we're in a manual provisioning situation where you do CSV imports, you create users manually, it's your job in August to come into the admin console and progress the students through the grades. You have a little more challenge in not having them get mixed together and creating holding OUs and temporary buckets to put them in to shift them all around. That's when we would recommend beneath the grade OU nesting in a graduation year OU, 2022, 2023, etc. Now in August, you can come in, just pick up those OUs and quickly move them from one grade to the next and utilize that to move your students in a more of a manual situation. Few OUs here at the bottom just around some life cycle management, having a long-term suspended OU for long-term suspended users so that we have them all in one place. That's a lot more organized, easier to find. Also then having a test OU that has a user and some test Chromebooks in it perhaps. We can pick up this OU, supplant it anywhere in the OU structure to emulate anyone's environment, to troubleshoot without having to leave the IT office. You're going to get the exact same experience as the users at the school on the Chromebooks. Move it back here when you're done until the next time you need to troubleshoot and pieces like that. The next part we want to look at is who has access to our admin console. Do we have too many admins? And if we go into the admin console here, if I haven't timed out yet, we can take a look at our super admin role. Super admin role can do everything. More importantly, can break everything. We want to keep control over this like we would with any other system. Too many chefs in the kitchen is a bad thing. We recommend at the most maybe 4 to 5 super admins. It's not something you need every day. We want accountability and trackability for what's happening and who's doing what. We don't need the entire IT department in as super admins, so keeping control over that, making sure we're using separate super admin accounts that are not our regular everyday Google accounts, so we reduce that risk of leaving ourselves signed into a machine and walking away and having a malicious person or student cause some damage. Having a separate account, turning on two-step verification for that separate super admin account to lock it down even more, and pieces like that. Also, not over-provisioning. If we're not happy with the pre-built roles here from Google, they can give a lot more privileges than what we really need, and they're not changeable, then let's make custom-created user roles with just the privileges you need. When possible, assigning those to just the OUs where those people will need to use those privileges so that we can be very targeted and not over-provision people's abilities in the admin console. Staying up to date and informed, how do we stay up to date? There's a lot of different resources out there, from using the Google blog updates, so this is where Google's going to post various updates, and you can subscribe to this and keep monitor this and keep an eye on it to know when things are changing and things are being released. We also have the What's New site that's gone through some facelifts, but the main calendar's still here. We can view the full calendar. We can see when Google's releasing updates to the existing products, when entirely new apps and services are coming out. They flag them for scheduled release or rapid release, early access, and things like that will be mentioned in here. And you can tag this calendar or add it to your own Google Calendar so that you can easily overlay that when you're in your calendar interface and see that information. So that'd be another great way to stay up to date. Using the alerts section in the admin console, if we go over to reports, we've got a really great ability here in the admin console to create various audit level reports, custom reports, and have an email sent to us when those criteria are met. And also under manage alerts, we have a lot of pre-built alerts from Google that we can receive emails on. Do we want to know when Google's having problems with their services and they're down or there's an outage? Do we want to know when there's suspicious login activity and we may have compromised accounts? Do we want to know when someone's added to an admin role or taken away? Someone's changed email or drive settings. We'll give people in our IT departments various abilities and roles because they need them, but have they ventured too far and maybe they're changing real high-level policy decisions that shouldn't be changed for schools. And those can go to super administrators, or those emails could go to any other Google accounts in our system. So utilizing and leveraging those is a great way to stay up to date and be informed on what's happening within our environment. We also run what we call Google for Education collaboratives around North America, around the US and Canada, various states and provinces. And these are groups of districts getting together and schools getting together that use Google for Education. They meet up 3 times a year, share best practices, talk about what's changed, what's happening in the Google environment. We have the Google EDU team there participating in those, bringing you their roadmaps and pieces like that. There's group discounts on various products and services, and a lot of YouTube live training sessions and information in between the meetups for those groups. So you can follow that link and see if there's a collaborative near you or in your area if you're interested in those, and they're also a great way to stay up to date. Provisioning-wise, how do we get our users, our staff, and students into the Google system? There's a few options, and quite a few options out there. There is manual or CSV imports through the console, and if you have a small amount of users, that could work very well for you and may definitely be the best way for you to do that. There's Google Cloud Directory Sync, or what used to be called GADS. That's a tool that synchronizes with our Active Directory system, reads the information from Active Directory. It doesn't make any changes, it just reads, and then it goes out to Google through the APIs and it creates users, manages them, moves them, suspends them, creates groups, manages the group's membership, possibly creates OUs, etc. And that's a free tool from Google that we can use to automate the process and take away all that heavy lifting of user management. If you're already managing users in Active Directory, that will just flow through and sync over to Google automatically. Through the APIs and other third-party solutions, you can also do a lot of user group and service management, whether that's with Google Apps Manager scripting, various third-party products that use the APIs, or tools that are out there, and similar tools like we have for working with student information system data as well to do that kind of automation. We have a Google for Education sync tool specifically for that due to the lack of a robust, good tool to work with your SIS data. Maybe you don't have Active Directory, maybe there's a lack of information in Active Directory regarding students or groups and things like that, or maybe even just to supplement what you're doing with GADS or Google Cloud Directory Sync. This tool will read an export of your student information system, a CSV export, so it's agnostic to the SIS system. It will read that information, and every day or every morning then go to Google and follow those actions, creating users, moving them, creating groups, updating OUs, resetting passwords en masse. It runs on a box within your data center, within your walls to do that work, and then connects out to the Google APIs. Group provisioning and management, so after we get users done, what can we do around Google Groups? And we want to have good, robust Google Groups. They come into good use cases in a lot of different places, from distribution lists in Gmail to using with Google Drive to share documents and share folders, perhaps inviting people to calendar events, and even in Google Classroom, teachers could be using Google Groups to invite their students and get them into the Google Classroom. So there's a lot of ways to use Google Groups. There's also what's called admin-created groups, and those are specially identified groups where they've been created by someone in the admin console, by Google Cloud Directory Sync or Google Apps School Directory Sync. Any access through the APIs like our Google for Education SIS Sync tool or any other third-party or API access creates groups that are identified as admin-created groups. If someone's going to create a group through the Groups for Business interface, possibly even an end user, a staff or student, those are flagged a little bit differently. And a tool like Google Cloud Directory Sync would not be able to then manage those groups because they're not admin created groups. They're made more by the end users and identified in that way as such. So that's something to be aware of as well. Our Amplified Labs division, and we can talk about that a little bit towards the end, has a tool around group management assistance where it's a delegation of management of the membership down to a school level, giving someone an easy spreadsheet interface method of taking people out of a group, putting people into a group. They don't require Groups for Business or any training on that, and they don't also have to be a member of the group themselves, and perhaps that's a good thing if they don't need to receive all the emails, communications, and document shares for that group. Maybe they just want to manage the membership. So information there on that tool can be found through those links if you want to have some school-level management of group membership. When it comes to the services, the applications, and various services in the admin console, as we said, there's a lot of them there. If we go take a look under apps, we've got the now 10 core apps with the addition of Google Keep. We've got 53 additional services. What are these? Who are they for? Who are they appropriate for? Who are they not appropriate for? Is there an evaluation process for new apps and services at our school or district? And if we haven't thought of that, we should, and maybe we should put some pieces in place. When something new comes into the console, a new app or service, who's deciding whether that's appropriate for students and for what age of students? Will staff get that app? What is that app doing with our data? Is it a core app that's covered under the support and privacy agreement, or is it an additional service? And we have to look at exactly what pieces of the Google profile is that app accessing for our users, and are we comfortable with that? Are we going to have our instructional and curriculum folks involved in the assessment of those applications and those decisions on who's going to get them? So we really recommend having that kind of structure and process built into your evaluation of apps and services. When it comes to the core apps, as we call them, the 10 core apps that are covered under the support and privacy agreement, again, they are the apps that are usually the ones that show the most issues with settings, and settings that are still at defaults that are not conducive to K-12 education. And in our audit, we go through every single setting in the admin console, every single setting in these core apps to highlight those areas where you should make those changes. And a lot of times schools struggle with things in Gmail around setting up Gmail properly. Are we setting up Gmail so that it's safe for students? Are we curating that environment? Are we scanning Gmail for objectionable content, misuse, student welfare information, things like that? Are we taking into account Google Drive sharing settings that are now, as of about around a year and a half ago, OU specific? We don't have to make those decisions globally for the whole domain. We can make those decisions just for students, just for certain age groups of students, around what their abilities are or are not for sharing documents and files outside of the domain, or receiving files in from the outside world. Google Calendar is one of the big culprits for having some really poor default settings around visibility of people's calendars. You know, there's defaults there where every student, every user can see the full details and all the information of everyone else's calendars without being given special permissions. That's a default setting. Do we want students to see the full details of every teacher's calendar? Probably not. So making sure those settings get tidied up and set appropriately is really important. Surprisingly, the default settings around Google Classroom class creation start off with a less than desirable setting, where there's a potential there that students could be making Google Classroom classes, and we give a report in our audit of what classroom classes you have, and are any of them created by students. There could be students creating classes, adding in their friends, and having private conversations within those self-made classes that you have no visibility of and no monitoring of. Even additional services like Google Plus have some detrimental settings around being able to change or edit your name and allowing your users to do their own name changes. That affects their entire Google profile and makes it really difficult for administrators to fix that and even identify who that person should be. It changes it in the admin console and everywhere you look in their entire Google profile. Chrome management. So Chrome management is a real large area for us to look after. There's quite a lot of settings, and it is an important area. That is our main area for affecting the user's environment, for curating, molding, and shaping what our students are going to receive and see, what our staff are going to see. Are we providing them with apps and extensions and various pieces to make their lives easy and help with adoption so that the system works well? Are we taking away things that students shouldn't have and taking away settings that may not be ideal for our district? That centers around user settings and device settings for the most part. Do we have our device settings set up well so that our Chromebooks allow, you know, only sign-ins from our users and not personal Gmail accounts, or not other people that may be at home if the Chromebooks are leaving the school? Are we allowing our Chromebooks to do their updates automatically so that they're up to date and they have all the latest features in the latest operating system? Are we scattering those updates randomly to reduce the load and the overhead on our Wi-Fi and on our internet connections? Pieces like that. Under Chrome user settings, you know, lots of different settings, pages and pages of settings. How are we force installing apps and extensions? How are we providing apps and extensions to our users and staff and making recommendations for them? How are we guiding them and leading them to the apps that we would like them to use, or the apps and extensions we're providing PD and training and in-service work on for teachers? Making sure we lay that out so that they have good guidance on what to do with the pieces that are here. As we said, monitoring and keeping an eye on what's happening within a lot of the different services is important. The two main ones really are Gmail and Google Drive that have the most concern for us. And there's an ability here to really automate and have good control over the digital citizenship that happens in the schools. And that can be from scanning student Gmail for, like we said, objectionable content, misuse, student welfare, having that information go to key people, having that information go to the principals of each school, getting them involved in digital citizenship at their school sites, scanning Google Drive or interrogating Google Drive for similar content. Students love to go into docs and chat, bully other students, swear and use objectionable language, using tools, and sometimes that may involve third-party tools, because we don't have everything we need in the Google system for free, but being able to scan all Google Drive files for that objectionable content, identifying it automatically with the policies we'd set up in these tools so that automatically sharing is removed, students are notified of their misbehavior, principals are receiving notifications, there's workflow attached to those to follow up on those incidents, and we can have a full circle of monitoring and enforcing our digital citizenship with those pieces. When we look at Google Drive security and compliance, because that is a really large one, we've got unlimited Google Drive for all of our users and students, which is great, but on the other side of that coin, it can create a lot of issues. What's in everyone's Google Drive? We really have no idea as administrators. Google, unfortunately, hasn't given us a lot of visibility. We have to look towards third-party tools to get a bit more visibility into that. Is there student welfare issues going on? We mentioned objectionable content. Who's sharing things externally? Are people just clicking on public when they share something, and there's student privacy information, IEP information being shared inappropriately outside of our district and outside of the domain? What's being shared even internally to the rest of the students and users in the system, where anyone can do a search within Google Drive and find these documents, and what's in those documents and who are they shared with? There's also options for encrypting sensitive information in Google Drive if you want to look into pieces like that, or that's a requirement for your special education folks or anyone in that area. A lot of the third-party tools allow you to overlay encryption onto Google Drive documents and files. Now we can maybe move that stuff to the cloud and not rely on network shares or flash drives, or however special education and other people working with at-risk students are keeping and sharing that information. And again, overall, we want to use tools like these walled garden approaches and that monitoring and scanning of Gmail and Drive to really help mold and shape good digital citizenship within our districts. Scanning of student emails, enforcing footers on student emails, restricted delivery so that they can only email within our domain, within our walls to other staff and students, keeping Google Drive sharing restricted so that strange people from the outside world are not sharing documents into our students that may have inappropriate content, allowing them to make mistakes within our walls, within that walled garden space, so that they can learn and have that guidance from our teachers to be good digital citizens going forward. And again, is what we're doing working is a tough question to answer. We really want to try to, especially in the early days, get some baselines on what we're doing with this Google environment, using reports in the admin console, monitoring those metrics, getting that information, storing it over time, outside of what the reports can give us, keeping it in sheets, keeping it in other places. We can graph that to see if we're getting that adoption, we're getting that uptake and usage of the environment. Engaging with our stakeholders, getting the principals involved, IT, working with the instructional curriculum department, because nowadays with these cloud environments, that's a must. We have to be on the same page with what we're doing and what we're providing to the staff and students. A lot of times getting the back office staff, the district office staff involved in Google is tough. It sometimes is seen as just a classroom tool, but using Google for education and the various apps and pieces of the suite in regular district activities, using a form to poll staff when there needs to be a question related to an HR piece or pieces like that, and using the tools, using Hangouts to do district activities. Focusing on the savings, the monetary aspect of less travel, less time wasted, using Google Docs, using Hangouts, using forms can be a great way to promote the use of that within a school or district. And then the ultimate question is, can all this work, all this time and investment, this return or this investment on Chrome devices and the rest of the suite, be linked to an actual noticeable increase in student success? Ultimately, if we're doing all this stuff, we want to make sure it's benefiting students. And that's a tough thing to answer, but definitely let's keep the metrics, let's keep an eye on the reports and the information to see if we can show that positive outcome and influence on student success. Again, we do our Google for Education audit. Some of the pieces I've showed you today are just a snippet, or as we say, the tip of the iceberg. We go through every single setting in the admin console, every core service, every additional service. Are they on and off for various OUs? What are the granular settings set to? What's on, what's off, what's not appropriate for students? We go through everything top to bottom with an engagement in our audit, from a kickoff call of gathering initial information from you and getting access to your domain, to going through all that, producing a report. We have a 60 to 80 page document outlining what your current settings are, what we recommend you change them to, why we recommend that change, why we feel it's important in that situation or for that age group of students or that scenario. And there's also information and links on how to make those changes in the audit report, how to build your own capacity, how to go out and make these changes yourself and empower your IT department to take ownership of the environment and do those changes. We have that document together. We do a 2-hour review call with you, very deep dive on all those settings and recommendations, creating the roadmap and the plan going forward on how you're going to get there, and review that with you with a real strong knowledge transfer and working with your IT team. And again, that's around a 2 to 4 week engagement for our audit. You can follow the link there to get more information on it. There's also a link to a video there as well. Some of the other things we do at Amplified IT, Stephanie mentioned earlier on around that question, who's a Google Certified Administrator. We run Google Certified Administrator Bootcamp days all around North America. It's a 1-day training event where we sit down with you, rooms full of upwards of 30, 35 people. We go over all the information you need to know around passing that Certified Administrator exam. We have a lens or a focus on it through the K-12 eye, so we go through the information, but we're always talking about K-12 best practices as we review it all. And then later in that afternoon around 2 p.m., everyone takes the exam. So we have rooms of 20, 30 people plus all taking that exam. We have a over 90% pass rate on all the boot camps we've run, and we've done 14 or 15 plus boot camps from last year to this year, and we're on track to do a lot of them in different areas throughout this year. So you can follow those links if you're interested in those, see if there's one happening near you. It's definitely the best way to become a certified administrator, but you'll also leave with a good instillment of K-12 knowledge along with that, as the Certified Administrator exam itself is not an EDU exam. It is just a Google Apps exam or a Google for Work exam, and we're going to build in all that K-12 information and best practice for you with that. We also have our Amplified Labs division. It was mentioned a few times in that presentation deck. What Amplified Labs is about is creating tools for the K-12 space in direct response to what you guys, what schools and districts are telling us they need, what Google's offerings do not have, or where the shortcomings are with Google Cloud Directory Sync or any of the other tools. People have gaps that they need filled, then we create a tool in response to that. Very low cost, low price tools targeted for education to be able to afford them, but also have support for them as well. So we don't want these to be free tools that maybe fly by night. We want you to be able to hang your hat on these and rely on them as part of your core processes that happen within the district and school. So there's support, there's ongoing development and feature changes with these tools to help support you in what you're trying to accomplish with Google. So you can go to the lab's website to check those out, from Chrome Gopher, to Little Sis, lots of different products there, even a free product for enrolling your Chromebooks called Centipede to do them hands-free. Lots of different options as well. We have a Kickstart service for districts, and I know there may be a lot of you on the webinar today that are maybe not yet started with Google or just starting with Google. So we have a Kickstart service similar to the audit, but kind of in reverse, where we'll meet up with you, go over some information. We will then create your Google domain for you from scratch, or take the pilot domain that you have, and we will set all the best practice settings. We'll turnkey configure the entire thing so that it's ready for you for a K-12 environment, hand that back to you, and now you can focus on your Chromebook rollout and all the other pieces of your IT world you need to worry about, knowing that that foundation is set and those pillars are there, and you can use that as your launch pad for your Google journey going forward. We also have technical services and support helping you with all things from support with the admin console, Chromebooks, any issues you're having, integration work, setting up GADs and GAPs, Google Cloud Directory Sync and password syncing, integrating with your student information system, custom scripting, anything that you're trying to accomplish, we have support there available for that as well. We mentioned our collaboratives, and again, there's more information on them there, and you can see if there's one in your area. We also do full-day on-site admin console training days, Chrome and Chrome management training days, custom training events for anything you're looking to get for your staff as well, and migrations. So if we're currently on Exchange or GroupWise or another platform, we're looking to move to Gmail, we do full migrations from those platforms, or even Google to Google migrations, making sure every piece of data, every mail object, calendar object, contact object potentially is moved from that legacy system over to Google effectively. And we can talk to you about those if you're interested, or if you're planning that migration perhaps this summer, give us a shout and we'd love to talk to you around that and see if there's any way we can help. And that being said, I think we'll see if Walter, I think you're online, you can let us know if there's any questions maybe that I can answer.
Hey, Tom. One answer to everybody is this video will be sent to you per an email after this is done, so you will get that. And they were also wondering about your URL at the beginning. And
for the slide deck?
Yeah, at the very beginning. I think some didn't get a chance to
because of the screen share issues. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And apologies for the screen share issues at the beginning. The slide deck URL is bit.ly/bestinsights, and that will bring up this slide deck, and that will remain after today's presentation and will not go anywhere. That's a slide deck that we always have running, and anytime you go to it, it will be up to date and current if anything needs to change. So all the information will be here, and all the links out to the various other sites and resources will be there for you as well.
Awesome. Okay, we'll get started on some of these questions. One is a good one from Kim. We started with Google Apps for Education back in 2006. There are many settings and policies that have changed. How you know, basically they're asking, with all the changes that have done, is it easier to start over, or how do you manage those conflicts of different settings that have changed?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Kim. I don't think starting over, now if you mean by starting over, scrapping the domain you currently have and starting up a totally fresh one, that wouldn't be something I'd recommend. We can always get there from whatever current state you're in, and to start up a brand new Google domain, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's not configured for education out of the box. So you're going to be looking at a brand new domain, but it's going to have a lot of more Google for Work oriented settings that are not really appropriate for our world in education. So we'd rather see you use what you have and just get it to where it needs to be, and get that foundation repaired and that good base of settings set. You know, our audit service works the same whether you think you have everything perfect and in really good shape, or you know that no one's ever taken a look at the settings and you know, nothing's probably set where it should be. We're going to take a look at every single setting, go through every single one regardless of its current state, and definitely bring to your attention all the settings and areas that need some focus and some adjustment.
And I think where she was heading to is the fact that when Google makes changes to profiles, the easiest way to make sure you've got a handle on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I guess does Google set out a document for them?
Yeah, we had a few resources back at the start, and let me just find that slide real quick around here it is here. There's the Blogspot article. So the Google blog is a great thing to subscribe to or watch the feed. They will post everything here. There are the YouTube videos from the Google admin team as well that will keep you up to date on what's changed. And then there was the calendar that we mentioned, the What's New calendar, subscribing or adding that calendar into your own calendar interface. The other piece we didn't mention that is an important one is under company profile as well. There's a major setting and choice here under company profile that has to do with how we're going to receive totally new products and services in our admin console. So the default here is automatic, and that can be a little bit of a problem because what it means is when something new comes out, even an additional service, everyone will have it instantly. Every student will have that right away, and maybe that's not appropriate. You know, if this was Google Voice years ago, I wouldn't want every student to have a free phone number and call everywhere in North America for free. If we change this to manual, what we're setting up is a nice little workflow piece where any new app or service is going to come into the admin console, but it will be off for all OUs. We'll know that it arrived because we've been watching the What's New calendar or the blog page and things like that. We can be on the lookout for it. Okay, now it's here. We can evaluate what is this? Is it appropriate for staff? Is it appropriate for students? And then you can make the choice of when and where, what OUs you turn it on for when you're ready. Maybe we need to put some PD and training plans in place before we roll something out to our staff and teachers. You know, things like that can be taken into consideration.
Okay, what would be the top 2 or 3 settings that are not set properly that when you're starting out as an admin?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the top 2 or 3, calendar, as I mentioned, seems to be one of the biggest culprits. Being able to see the full details of any teacher's calendar is not a good thing for students, and that could have some real privacy concerns. That would be a good one. The other big one would probably be Google Drive sharing. As I said, back in the day, whether people could share documents externally to the outside world and receive them was a global setting a little ways back, and that was a tough situation for schools to be in. I want teachers and staff to do that, but I have to turn it on for everybody. And then finally, Google made that OU specific. So just because it's OU specific now doesn't mean it's set right. The default's still going to be wide open and allowed sharing to the outside world for every user. So drilling down to our student OU or our elementary middle OU, if we want it to be K-8, that's that concept of setting up that walled garden so that those students are protected from that. And more importantly, I think, is people being able to share into our students. There's no stopgap or anything in Google Drive that asks the student if they want to receive that share. It just shows up under shared with me. Of course, the kids are going to click on it and open it, and who knows what's in that document, inappropriate content coming in from an outside unknown person.
That's great. 2 questions that have similar is what kind of third-party tools are used to monitor the drive, and in regards to Drive, what are some best practice or tools that give reports or these types of items? So they kind of 2 things there.
Okay, sure. And yeah, overall for third-party tools, one of the things that we do is we're constantly monitoring the marketplace and the ecosystem to figure out what the best tools are out there for third-party add-ons to your Google environment. We work with many different vendors. What we want to do is make sure your needs and your initiatives are properly identified. We want to talk first about what you're trying to accomplish. What are you trying to do? What are your goals with Google Drive monitoring? Then we'll go see maybe what product fits. A couple of the vendors we work with in the space that are really great is SysCloud or BetterCloud. Both have abilities to scan through Google Drive documents, be able to identify keywords or possibly use regular expression formulas, look for IEP information, give you a report on your exposure profile, how many documents are being shared externally to the outside world. You could open any document in Google Drive, potentially, whether it's shared with you or not, using some of these tools. So now we're able to dig in and see what these files are. Do we need to go back and train our staff on how to share more appropriately? We can get reports on how many are shared with a link, how many are shared internally to everyone. Looking for any pieces of information around student privacy, student IDs, credit card numbers, social security numbers, anything like that could be scanned for. And automatic policies can be set up to handle and deal with this information. So it doesn't have to be a big make work project for IT putting in one of those tools.
Good question here is Google sends out messages that we should have a certain percentage of Chromebooks in the beta channel. Good ideal or bad ideal?
Yeah, they do recommend that, and Google's recommendation is, 10% of your fleet, I believe, they recommend typically should be in the beta channel. That's kind of maybe a surprising number for some people. It depends how many Chromebooks you have. If you're a large one-to-one school or district, or you have thousands and thousands of Chromebooks, that could actually be a large portion of Chromebooks. We talk with districts and schools a lot about this. One of the lines of thought is, maybe we don't want devices that are in students' hands, production devices in the beta channel. There could be quirks, there could be bugs that come up. We maybe don't want calls coming into the help desk that we spend time and effort on, and then we find out, it's because of a new beta feature that's not quite performing correctly. We really recommend keeping the IT department on the beta channel, having all of your technicians, your IT staff have their devices on the beta channel. That's another way you're going to see things that are coming before they're actually released to the full OS version for Chromebooks. So there again is our way to see things early, do our testing. How does this affect the internal intranet portals we use for staff and students? How does this new addition or feature or version of Chrome OS affect our standardized online testing in kiosk mode and things that we're trying to do in our testing app? And if we need to, maybe we identify a problem early by being in the beta channel, and it gives us an opportunity to freeze our Chromebooks at version 55 before they attempt to upgrade to 56 because we identified that problem or that issue early.
Okay. Running down in time, and there was one here that says, what's the best method of asking for feature requests?
That's a great question. So in working very, very closely with the Google EDU team, we can confidently say that the send feedback buttons that you'll find all over the admin console and even in the various docs and sheets and the various tools, those do get used by the Google team. And I know, my knee-jerk reaction from years in IT is, oh yeah, send feedback. That's going to disappear, into the ether, and no one's going to ever read that. The Google team very much, and the engineers do sit down, I believe, on a monthly or so basis. They take a look at all that feedback, and very much for sure, the admin console we look at today is very much a product of all that feedback over the last 5 or 6 years has contributed to what we see today and what we get. And that's very much true for the classroom product, as it's solely for education, and it's something that Google purpose-built for education only. So we recommend the send feedback buttons. That's probably one of the best ways. And then again, our Google for Education collaboratives are being really leveraged by Google a lot as sort of a voice of education. They're coming to those to get information from you guys, from the schools and districts, what your struggles are, what your challenges are. They want to hear that feedback from you, and they're also, using that as a conduit to get that information and guide the product roadmap for G Suite for Education.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I think we're pretty much, there's quite a few questions left, and I would say that we'll be getting back to everybody with those questions that they've asked. I would say that there was quite a few asking about Android apps and that whole part, and there was a button called EEM policies for, you know, and on and on. So, but I think that would be better to do offhand. But what is your outlook for the future in that?
Yeah, it's definitely a big topic, and you're right. We've done almost full-hour sessions on Android apps on Chromebooks, but what's happened is a bit of a transition. We had a bit of a foray into Android tablets, Google Play for Education, and Nexus 7 and a few other tablets where you bought a management license that had its problems. It had its hiccups along the way. Google has deprecated that environment. You can no longer buy licenses or really get into that and do that. What's replaced it is this movement towards Android apps on Chromebooks, on Chrome OS. So Android in a runtime type environment running over top of Chrome. And what's really pushed that is this introduction of all these touchscreen and touchscreen flip Chromebooks, as the technology is now permitted into the ecosystem. And it makes a lot of sense. We flip a Chromebook over, it's very much like a tablet, and now with the Android apps and the Play Store has arguably a larger scope of applications and better maybe options for educationally oriented applications, special education applications obviously, and that's really going to open a big door. We really feel it's one of the biggest changes to Chromebooks in the last 7 years for sure. So that's something we're keeping an eye on. Right now it's a little bit limited. There's only certain models, 4 models that are compatible, but there's a list of models from Google that at some point this year are going to be opened up to be usable with. Basically anything a year or 2 old is probably on that list that you would be able to do Android apps. And it's a great setup in that you'll have full control. Only the Android apps that you specify will students and people get. They cannot browse the entire Play Store themselves and get whatever they want. You can pull them back. It's just the free apps currently. We don't know much about paid apps yet and how that may be handled. There's also no ability for teachers to delegate it down to the teachers to be able to distribute these apps themselves. It's still just an IT level function at this point for administrators.
Awesome, Tom. Yeah, that hits home. We have the J5 and the NL6T that is, we are testing and works just fine, but it has to be in the developer mode. So,
for now, yeah.
For now.
Yep.
So, Stephanie, are you there?
Yes, I'm right here. I'll go ahead and take the screen. I wanted to show our final slide with some contact info. Get this full screen for everybody. So great. Thank you so much, Tom, for all this information. As you can tell by all the questions, it was quite a popular topic for everybody and very helpful. Great. And thank you to all of our attendees for attending today. If you have any other questions, you can feel free to contact me at the email you see on the screen. I've also included Tom's contact information. When you leave the webinar, you will have the opportunity to earn a certificate of completion for today. And don't worry about memorizing this link in the blue box. There'll be an email going out shortly, and you can follow the link there. As well, this has been recorded. I saw a few people asking about that. We always record our webinars and post them at ctl.info/webinars. And again, this will be in your email that's going out. And if you go to this site, you'll be able to see upcoming webinars and register, as well as we have a huge library. We've been doing these webinars for almost 2 years now, so you can look up topics, and it's a really great resource. So I think we have, without any further information, I want to thank everybody, and thanks for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much, Tom.
All right, thank you. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.